equals 3 studios.
I've done heists. I've done cons. I haven't done them, but I've talked about them on the show. So now all that leaves is hoaxes. And probably a few other things that are similar to heists and cons and hoaxes that we will discuss in another episode. But for now, we hoax.
Number 5.
The Fiji Mermaid. It presented with the option, don't buy a mermaid. For ethical reasons. In 1822, this guy named Samuel Eads, he bought a mummified mermaid from a group of Japanese sailors for the low price of $6,000. Like today, that would be like $130,000. But there was just one problem. It's not that mermaids aren't real. They are. I mean, I've seen the documentary film, The Little Mermaid. It was actually the torso of a baby monkey sewn onto the back half of a fish. Those Japanese fishermen, they're real hoaxsters. So when Eads died, his son sold the mermaid to this guy who was friends with P.T. Barnum. You know, like P.T. Barnum, the circus guy. Barnum leased the mermaid for $12.50 a week so he could show it in his museum. And it became the first one of like Barnum's legendary hoaxes. Barnum got publicity by writing these fake letters to newspapers talking about how these fishermen caught a mermaid in South America. So many people flocked to see this mermaid that it got moved to the Museum of Natural History. Like history meaning real things like mermaids that do exist, just not this specific mermaid.
Number 4.
Balloon Boy. Don't name your kid Falcon. In 2009, a Colorado man, Richard Heaney, called 911 to report that his 6-year-old son, Falcon, had climbed inside a large homemade helium balloon and floated away. The worst part about that story is the kid's name is Falcon. Obviously, the story captured the attention of the media, and they ran live footage of this balloon traveling 50 miles and reaching over 7,000 feet. And the press nicknamed him Balloon Boy, because anything's better than Falcon. When the balloon finally landed an hour later, Falcon was nowhere to be found. Turns out, he'd never even been in the balloon. He had been hiding in the attic the entire time. Did little Falcon get grounded for playing this prank? Nope, because his parents are the ones that came up with it. His parents planned the whole thing. See, Richard and his wife, they wanted to be famous. You know, at the time, they were even scheduled to appear on TLC's Wife Swap. So, you know, they were about to be real big time. For wasting everybody's time, the Heeneys had to pay $36,000 and spend a combined 4 months in prison. That's what you get for naming your kid Falcon.
Number 3.
Clever Hans, the math whiz horse. Don't look a gift horse in the math. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him count that water drops. In the early 1900s, there was this German math teacher, Wilhelm, and he owned a horse named Hans. Hans wasn't used for like riding or driving or anything like that. Wilhelm taught him math. Yep, using the same methods that you would use to teach a child. They toured all over Germany giving free performances. Wilhelm would ask Hans math questions, and most of the time, Hans would get it right. He would give the correct answer by tapping his hoof that number of times. I mean, that's pretty amazing, right? One psychologist didn't think so, stupid Oscar Funkst. He started studying Hans. He realized that Hans wasn't actually doing math. He was just responding to changes in his trainer's body language. So Wilhelm would tense up as Hans was counting, but then when Hans reached the right number, Wilhelm would relax. And so Hans picked up on this body language change and would know to stop counting when his trainer relaxed. Funkst determined that Wilhelm wasn't knowingly deceiving people, that these changes in his body language were completely involuntary. Come on, what the Funkst? Why do you gotta ruin this for everyone? It's not like Wilhelm was deceiving anybody. Just let the guy think his horse does math, okay?
Number 2.
Piltdown Man. Don't believe people when they tell you they've solved evolution. The missing link between man and ape has fascinated scientists for as long as we've been studying evolution. In 1912, in Piltdown, England, this amateur geologist Charles Dawson discovered parts of a skull that he believed to be the missing link. This skull was seen as a tremendous discovery that answered many questions about evolution. Yeah, sure, there were skeptics, but for the most part, people thought this was legit. Like, Piltdown Man was the missing link for 40 years. Until 1953, when fluorine testing revealed the truth. Yeah, fluorine ruining everything, once again. With the Funkst fluorine, so it turns out the skull was fairly modern. It was less than 50,000 years old. And it wasn't just one skull, it was constructed from the jaw of an orangutan attached to the cranium of a human. Some people don't think that it was Dawson that was behind the hoax. They think it was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. You know, the guy that wrote Sherlock Holmes. In his novel that came out the same year Piltdown Man was discovered, he wrote that bones were as easy to fake as photographs. Kinda suspicious. Elementary, my dear Dawson.
Number 1.
The Turk. Beep boop. And I'm so shiny, I look like a little robot. Don't trust robots. In 1770, Wolfgang von Kempelen unveiled the Shock Turk, or the Chess Turk, to the Empress of Austria. The Chess Turk was an automaton, basically a robot that could play chess. Yeah, in the 1700s. What? It was called the Turk because it had the stereotypical appearance of a Turkish man dressed like an Oriental sorcerer. It's not racist, I'm using air quotes. So the Turk traveled all over Europe and the Americas for 84 years, beating opponents like Benjamin Franklin and Napoleon. But wait, they had robots for real in the 1700s? Yeah, I know, it's crazy, right? Not. It wasn't actually a robot. See, the robot was actually controlled by a chess player inside moving the arms around like a Muppet. The craziest thing to me is that no one figured out that it wasn't actually a robot. I mean, look at this thing. It's like some guy's crunched in there and never sneezed or anything like that. It looks pretty dusty in there. 5, 4, 5. All right, guys, that's it. That's all of the hoaxes I have for you today. If you take anything out of this episode, just remember, mermaids are real. I'm Kelly Landry, and you're smarter than you were.
Thank you for watching this Equals 3 Studios production. To watch another episode, click here. Also, don't forget to subscribe. And now, my Chewbacca impression. I'll work on it.